that's actually something I want to talk about. So I'm recording this on the 28th. The 28th is supposed to be my day off. I normally have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Friday, or at least off from streaming. It doesn't mean that I don't do work those days. I just don't perform live on a camera those days. And what was supposed to be the case today was that the economy was basically supposed to go into a black hole. The only few purchases that you are allowed to make were not very well communicated across board. Some people said it was okay to do online retailers. Some people said it wasn't. Some people said that it was okay to buy digital goods. Some people said that it wasn't. Basically, this was supposed to be a day where the American economy, ideally the global economy, went into a full blackout as an attempt to remind everybody who is in power, the billionaires who own all the fucking corporations, who really has the power here. And it's not supposed to be them. Unfortunately, I don't think it worked. Now, obviously, it is the day of. We do not know what the actual economic impact is of this, but there is something that needs to be said about organization with lack of unionization. Stop says, I was under the assumption it was local cash only. Yeah, that's the thing. The messaging was everywhere. Some people said, oh, local shops are okay. And for others, it was supposed to be a full economic blackout from the bottom up, period. Everywhere, and even in the chat, I am seeing disagreement. In fact, actually, why on my sources do I not have the chat up of all things? Let me go ahead and bring that up real quick. There we go. There it is. So, Senna says, stocks are higher today, but still quite down compared to the prior 30 days. Here, we're going to have to see what this looks like come a couple days from now. But, again, I think this entire situation where we were supposed to be under a blackout, but the messaging on it was not clear everywhere, proves something that I've been wanting to talk about. I've talked about it at length before, but we need to be on the same page about. Individual action is fucking useless. Now, that is not to say that you as an individual, your actions are useless. I'm not talking about you and your day-to-day life. I'm talking about individual actions of random people as opposed to collective effort. Collective effort is far more impactful than a few sporadic individual people doing something, and unfortunately, the only people who are going to be paying attention to an economic blackout are going to be leftists who are so plugged into the online media apparatus that we are willing to comply with a blackout of the economy. Unfortunately, that is not the majority of America. The majority of America is liberal, and then conservative, and then insane. I know it sounds like I said the same two words back to back, but I promise you there is a small distinction. Otaku Senpai says, this is actually first I've heard about the economic boycott. However, the only spending I've done today is paying my auto insurance. Dragonic says, I don't remember, let me scroll up, I don't remember hearing anything tell me about it till this stream. So, let's go ahead and look up what it was supposed to be. This is going to showcase the power of unionization more than anything. Some consume... You say today, I swear to God, auto pocket pop-ups. Stop it. Many consumers nationwide plan to participate in a 24-hour economic blackout on Friday, which started after midnight, to protest what they call corporate greed. Companies that have rolled back their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and President Donald Trump's efforts to eliminate federal DEI programs since taking office. During Friday's one-day event, consumers participating in the boycott are encouraged not to spend any money anywhere for one day. If they have to spend, they are encouraged to buy from a local business. It is difficult to gauge the economic impact of a one-day action with data, but one measure showed that Amazon sales were actually slightly up instead of down. The 24-hour economic blackout is one of several protests launched by consumer groups, which also includes specific boycotts against Target and national activists upset with the retailer for its retreat from DEI efforts. So what is all of this? What is all of this? Well, all of this is a way to feel like you are having an economic impact. These are all things that are done, usually by liberals, to feel like you are having an impact on the economy, like you are having an impact on the world around you, like you are actually changing something. But for every person that didn't buy from Chick-fil-A, there is somebody who did. For every person who didn't buy from Home Depot and instead decided to shop at Lowe's because they think that the political alliances of one were better than the other, there was somebody who bought something from Home Depot anyway. For every person who bought locally, there is somebody who bought from a Walmart, if not more people that bought from a Walmart. This is the kind of zero-effort organization that can't even be called organization. This is the kind of thing that just illuminates the power of unions. A bunch of people not coming to work for one day can entirely shut down a company, can ruin its ability to make any of its deadlines. But there's a couple factors that have to be at play there. For one, it needs to be damn near everybody, with picket line crossers being shamed across the fucking globe. Also, QU Cosmic, thank you very much for subscribing. Or thank you very much for following. A strike is when a group of people in the same workplace or in the same grouping of workplaces, usually done under the banner of a single union, decide not to come to work for an extended period of time because they have a certain amount of demands that need to be met by the employer before they are willing to go back to work. These demands usually have to do with pay, usually have to do with it's usually wages, it's usually hours, it's usually medical, it's usually working conditions, but it's usually one of these actionable things. It is one of these actual actionable things. If we go into the article a little bit, let's go ahead and see if there's any actionable item that is here. Or is it just a blanket, we are all going to do a thing to try to feel good for a little bit? The organizer of the boycott, John Schwartz, goes by one called Jai on Instagram. He previously told USA Today that he started the bold idea because the time was right and people were frustrated with what he calls corporate greed and other issues. The one-day action has been expanded by the People's Union, the organization Schwartz has started. It includes boycotts of various companies and retailers during different time periods, including Amazon from March 7th to 14th, Nestle from... okay, so what the fuck is any of this supposed to accomplish? I'm sorry, if you're boycotting Amazon from March 7th to the 14th, and then you do all your Amazon purchases on the 15th, or you do them all on the 6th, what changes for Amazon? What changes for Amazon? What changes for Walmart? You haven't even affected everybody's fucking pay period at that point. Because people are still going to need their groceries, and if their habits are going to Walmart, they're going to still end up going to Walmart afterwards. This is all fucking performative resistance. None of that actually does anything. None of this does anything in any way, shape, and form. They'll just make their purchases on the surrounding dates. Is there anything actionable here? What other boycotts are planned? Do boycotts work? Conservative activists have successfully rallied in recent years to force retailers and companies to rein in their DEI efforts by staging boycotts to hurt sales. Professors have told USA Today the boycotts can be successful in shaming the company into reversing decisions. No, the fuck they don't. Companies aren't people. They don't experience shame. What the fuck is this? Companies do not experience shame. In fact, most CEOs of most companies are so faceless, nobody can tell you who the fuck they are if they're walking around in a crowd. Why would they experience shame? So what's the alternative here? What's the alternative here? Well, I was talking about unions and why unions do what they do. Okay? The reason that a strike works from a union is because of two things. There can be repercussions from the union when a scab, who is somebody who crosses a picket line, crosses the picket line. And the picket line is whatever arbitrary line in the sand has been drawn by the union to illuminate what the strike is and is about. When you cross a picket line, when you are told, don't come to work until our demands are met, and you come to work anyway, you have crossed the picket line. That is considered a huge faux pas. Why? Because it completely undermines the collective power of the strike effort. And also, it tends to make your life infinitely worse because now you're the one person or the one of like 4 people who came into work at the factory or the retailer or the grocery or wherever you happen to be. Now your life is infinitely worse because you're one of the only people trying to serve 1 billion customers. You're miserable. Your union hates you. Your boss never stopped hating you. And this bootlicking didn't make your life any better. And oftentimes that level of individual shame, because there's no fucking such thing as corporate shame, that level of individual shame can stop somebody from crossing a picket line, which allows a union to maintain its collective power. Its collective bargaining power is the people that it shelters from the company. Now, why is a union able to shelter people from repercussions from the company? Usually because there are legal protections for people within the union from getting fired for illegitimate means by their companies. And oftentimes in states, there are union protections that allow people to go on strike and that not be considered things like absence from work. Also, when we are talking about the power that unions have, they are often funded by the individual donations of people within the union. This is often seen as like a 2 to 5% fee on your paycheck. It is called a union due. Now, why is a union due there? Very simply, the minute that everybody goes on strike, the union is supposed to step in and start helping people with their paychecks for the time at work that they are missing. The point of the union is to provide all of the infrastructure necessary not only to organize a strike, but to shelter the workers from the repercussions of the strike while they negotiate for their collective power. Collective organizing like this boycott don't work for a variety of reasons. For one,
I have no shame, but that's for different reasons. You woo.
Thank you very much, Robbie, for the 500 bits. There are 2 reasons why these kinds of boycotts do not work. Reason number 1. Everybody is still going to be working through those retailers. They're just going to do it on the dates that they're allowed to do it, and the bottom line of these retailers isn't going to be hit. Also, for every single person that sees this and decides to spite the boycott, they're just going to buy more shit from these retailers. And when they do that, the end result is those retailers end up making more money. They make as much money as they would have from you when you buy on the separate day, and they make even more money from the people who are buying it to spite, or buying from them to spite the boycott. The only reason people are able to buy from those retailers to spite a boycott is because you lack the collective shame aspect that a union can provide. The ability to say, okay, if you're going to cross the picket line, you lose your union protections. You lose this, you lose that. There is no mechanism by which to control anybody during one of these proposed boycotts. And thanks to the game of telephone that is the internet, there is another aspect of these kinds of boycotts that cannot be maintained. And that is what the fuck they are even supposed to be. Some people thought the boycott had to do with every single thing in the economy. Some people thought it had to do with everything except local business. Some people thought it had to do with everything that didn't involve using cash. It just depended on who you got your information from. As for me, I got no less than 3 different versions of what the boycott was supposed to be between Blue Sky and Twitter. And yet, another version based on what's here from USA Today. And it doesn't matter what the original messaging of the boycott was at this point, because most people who are hearing about the boycott are going to start hearing about it from that game of telephone. And when you participate in one of these boycotts, you feel like you're part of something greater instead of being part of something greater, which we'll get into in a second. This is where the next issue with these kind of boycotts come to fruition. These kinds of boycotts don't have anything actionable. What is the purpose of these? To get DEI back into these various employers' handbooks? Is it to just show that you're dissatisfied with Donald Trump? What is the actual demand? When you go on a strike with a union, there is a set of demands that need to be met. And if those demands are not met, then the strike continues. Those are the rules. That's how it works. With one of these boycotts, what is the demand? Is it just crossing your arms and shaming the company and then saying, I'm not going to buy from you for a week? Every CEO is just going to say, I don't know who the fuck you are. And they're going to go continue drinking their overly expensive imported coffee. That's what they're going to do. I want boycotts like this to work. I want them to function. But the fact of the matter is, as far as I can tell, most of the time they do not. Because there is nothing actionable there. The time limits are arbitrary. And things go back to exactly the way they were before. And this is a failure of most liberal positions and policies. The point of most liberal positions and policies, as far as I've been able to tell, is to try to bring things back to normalcy. To try to bring things back to what we are used to, what we are accustomed to. The difference between a liberal and conservative, as far as I can tell, most of the time seems to be a liberal wants things to go back to the way they were a couple days ago, and a conservative wants things to go back to the way they were a couple decades ago. The difference between these two is usually racism. But when it comes to actually enacting some kind of change to make the world better, we need to be going through different channels. This is why lately I've been advocating for, quite literally, usurping the leadership away from Democrats. And you do that by getting everybody together from the ground up on things like Mobilize or going through the DSA and actively working to take positions away from either elected officials within the Democratic Party or take positions away from people who are in the Democratic Party locally. By taking those reins of power and actively working to change what the party's identity is, you can start changing the Democratic Party to be a force for good, as opposed to a force for a return to normalcy while the Overton window shifts ever further to the right. Axo says it's also just really hard to boycott some companies when they own everything. Yeah, you boycott Walmart, but are you boycotting everything that Walmart owns? Do you even know everything that Walmart owns? You boycott Amazon, so you don't order things on Amazon, but you don't know how much shit Amazon owns. A company which was able to bring an entire fucking city to its knees. Did you know what Amazon did in Seattle? When they brought all their offices in there and demolished a fuck ton of Seattle and then put just fucking up and left? And now suddenly everything in Seattle, or like a shit ton of shit in downtown Seattle, is just empty, vacant office buildings from fucking Amazon? You think that company is affected by you not buying a couple sticks of butter on their website today? Probably not. Probably not. This is why it's so important to engage in something that is actually going to cause a measure of good. Wagging your fingers at faceless corporations does not do anything. Executing their CEOs does. I'm kidding, but I had to work in a joke about the United Healthcare debacle somewhere, and that seemed like the place to do it. The thing that actually causes these people to get upset, the thing that actually causes people who are in power to feel the constraints of the United States populace is when that populace is rallied against them over something that actually can be done. If there are no demands to be met, then there is no point to a strike. If there is legislation that is levied against them, now suddenly demands are on paper. And if that legislation can be passed through, or at least put through so many times that eventually it gets through via just the erosion of the politicians that are working on it, if you can get legislation passed through that increases the tax burden on every single one of these corporations, that forces them to reintegrate these programs into their apparatus, those things will actually cause a measure of good. But we can't get those things to happen with a limp-dicked Democratic Party that doesn't even know what their powers are in the U.S. government anymore. We can't get those things done by another limp-dicked boycott that doesn't actually have anything actionable at the end of it. We get those things done by organizing together and changing the system that is fucking us. And right now, there are two aspects of the system that need to be changed. The Republican Party itself needs to be changed from a party that has power to a party that doesn't have power. And the way we do that is by challenging them on every fucking front. Something that the other problem we're dealing with hasn't been doing lately. The Democratic Party, as of right now, has not been actively challenging the Republican Party everywhere that it needs to. How do I know that? Because I've actually been here in the local Democratic Party hearing about how, oh, I don't know, the state Dems send us down the representative who's going to be going against Marjorie Taylor Greene, as opposed to us putting our own representative from our own area who's more likely to win. Our local party only having $10,000 to mess around with because they consider my county a lost cause. Not my county considers itself not a lost cause. As far as the workers in my county are concerned, we have the numbers to usurp Marjorie Taylor Greene. But the state Democrats don't. The state Democrats have basically abandoned my county. So what do you do when the state Democrats abandon your county? You don't just grab enough power to show them that you need support again. You grab enough power to show them that they need to be scared that you're going to continue trickling that power up and then take away their seats too. I got stonewalled trying just to interview canvassers by the Harris campaign. Because interviewing canvassers required me to go through not one, not two, not three, but 4 layers of red tape, and that's just how many I got through. I had to talk to the local manager in Douglas County. Then I had to talk to their boss. And then I had to talk to their boss. And then after being off the phone with their boss, I was told I would be talking to yet another boss. And then that never materialized. This is a party that has effectively forgotten its constituents. Completely. And we won't be fixing this problem with a third party because the numbers are not in our favor. So we need to be strategic. And we need to start basically forcing the party to change from the inside out. And we need to do it fast enough that the money that funds the higher levels of the party isn't able to actually tell what hit them when suddenly all of the people they've been funneling money to for their lip-dick policies aren't there anymore. But that's just me. That's just my rant. That's not even what I wanted to come on here to talk about today. But I needed to talk about that anyway, so there we go. I guess this is where I need to go ahead and say thank you for watching. And also I would say insert video tagline here, but I also need to make sure that I've got all of my other stuff covered. I need to get past not having any plan here and just being angry. So maybe consider subscribing over to my Magic the Gathering channel. Maybe consider supporting me over on Patreon. Maybe consider supporting me by picking up the channel playmat over on Fourth Wall. You can also consider supporting me by subscribing to the main channel where I have content every single day and following the stream over on YouTube and over on Twitch. I'm so happy I set up those advertisement things because they remind me that I need to be doing that because this is still my job. Anyways, thank you for listening to me rant and be angry. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.